Section 38 of the Crimes Act, 1958. A person must not commit rape. Penalty: Level 2 imprisonment, 25 years maximum. A person commits rape if A. He or she intentionally sexually penetrates another person without that person's consent. 1. While being aware that the person is not consenting or might not be consenting. Or 2. While not giving any thought to whether the person is not consenting or might not be consenting. Or B. After sexual penetration, he or she does not withdraw from a person who is not consenting on becoming aware that the person is not consenting or might not be consenting. Subsection 62(2) of the Crimes Act, 1958. The existence of a marriage does not constitute or raise any presumption of consent by a person to an act of sexual penetration with another person, or to an indecent assault with or without aggravating circumstances by another person.
He ended up raping me and was raping me before I even realised that's what it was. I don't know a lot about sex, only what I was told to do. Shut up and take it. A sentence I know very well. I could predict it or avoid it, and all those damn things that you have to do. And you shouldn't have to do them, ever. I would say, you're hurting me, I'm dry, to no avail. I was being abused, but because of early abuse, I have a high pain tolerance. I didn't know. For 3 or 4 days, I was just so bruised and swollen, and I'd say, I can't do that again. I didn't understand why. Then I told him, you can't do this to me, and he still did it. For some reason, everything I told him not to do, he just did. When you tell him it's hurting, and he keeps going. And he just flipped me over like I was a lightweight. That act in itself was so strong. For him to pick up my 60 kilograms and just flip me and then ram me was just a flash. He bloody crippled me, and then he told my daughter the next day, I hurt your mum last night.
I was 20 and a new mother and knew nothing, really nothing about life. I lived 1,000 miles from home. It was only 4 weeks after my daughter was born that he did it. I went for my postnatal checkup, and it was actually my gynecologist who said to me when he was doing an examination, I remember him quite vividly standing at the end of the table, and he stepped back and he went, oh my God. And he looked at me and he didn't quite know what to say. He said to me, what's happened here? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about, because my husband was out in the waiting room. And he said, I need you to tell me what's been going on here. You're cut from every angle, right through your vagina, right through the outer layers. You look like you've been attacked with a razor blade. You've got at least 200 open wounds. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And with that he said, I think he offered to help. I'm not quite sure, but I was just so terrified. And he said, well, I'll give you something. And I said to him, the pain is unbearable. I can't tell you, the pain is unbearable. It happened continually from the 4th week after I had my daughter. He raped me 4 times in those 2 weeks, then continuously for 4 years. My son was conceived that way.
I was possessed, not loved. He'd been so emotionally violent, so controlling, and that continues despite the marriage being over. He had me as a trophy and controlled me, and that was my role, to be his no matter what. He married me so he owned me. That's where it all came unstuck. As the story goes, 6 weeks after we were married, I broke my ankle. I was extremely active and it changed the way I thought about everything. I couldn't move. I was in bed with my foot in a box in plaster. He wanted sex and I said no. He flew out of bed and said, you cold cunt of a thing, you're my wife, you will. I think I died that minute.
I know at one time I felt I was very lucky to be alive because I had said no to sex. He was drinking and I just said no. I had a pillow placed over my face and held there while my partner had sex. That was combined with a couple of hits around the head. I remember when he finished, he just went to sleep. When I thought about that time, I thought how close I was to death. Not just the pillow, hands around my neck and everything. I realised how close to death I was. It did happen more than once. It was just his right to have sex whenever he wanted it. And he had a piece of paper to say he owned me. They were the words. I have a piece of paper to say I own you. You do what I say.
A high percentage of sex was without consent. Twice a day he would want sex and was never ever satisfied. I had no mind worth acknowledging. What I call rape in front of a porno made my whole body sore the next day, trying to keep him off. I consider rape when someone's manhandled, dragged you, and no matter what you do, you can't get him off. And you don't want what's happening, and you feel like a ton of shit. But saying no in the morning, no in the day, no at supper time, just do what you want to do, and I'll think of England. Deaf ears. He's emotionally blackmailed me consistently. No matter what I said, he wanted and he got. I did assertiveness training to express my feelings. I learnt there how to say no. For the first time in 14 years, I said no. So much for assertiveness training skills. He raped me.
It happened somewhere between the ages of 17 and 20. I hadn't been married long. I was married at 16 and a half and I was still a kid. I can remember the night perfectly, but I can't remember exactly when it was. He'd been watching porno before he came to bed. He brought it home from some guy at work. He was 4 years older than me. Although afterwards I felt absolutely terrible. I felt degraded. I was still in a relationship with him and still had to see him every day and live with him. It only happened once and not again, probably because I didn't say no. I think if I had said no again, it would have. In a way, I'd learnt my lesson the first time. Don't say no.